Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Conspiracy 101, your online course for conspiracies and conspiracy theory. I am your Professor Dan, and for this lesson, we'll be diving into the world of espionage, false information, to examine false flag operations. Now, I know what you're thinking. What is a false flag operation? I mean, is it when someone claims you did something wrong on a video and flags you falsely? No, that's just, again, falsely being flagged. A false flag operation is actually usually a military or intelligence operation. It's a form of black ops. It's a covert operation designed to deceive someone. The deception created has the appearance of being done by a particular party, group, or nation, while disguising the actual peoples who are responsible for it. Now, there are two main types of false flag operations. I'll describe them, and then they all have common attributes in common. Now, the common attributes between all false flags. This thing is might call this the unifying 3 points. All of them have a goal. They have something they want to do. In terms of internal ones, tend to have much more internal things, whether it's political, it's destroying a political opponent, affecting foreign or domestic policies. Whereas the external false flag, which we'll cover as well, tends to be a lot more military-minded, we'll say. So, first I'm going to cover an external false flag, which is best analogous to a middle child breaking his older brother's toy and then hiding in his little brother's toy chest and making it look like the younger brother did it, so he doesn't get retaliation from his older brother. But that's kind of where the analogy ends. You see, external false flags are, done to not only blame someone else, oh, it was Iran did it or Russia did it. Not only that, but it's also to convince the victim group that that person A is not to be trusted, and B, it also can be used to break or make alliances. Yes, I said that. So, if you were to look at false flag, this type in history, the most common one actually is the origin of the word false flag, and then it was pirates. Pirates would take the flags of the ships they ransacked, and sometimes, let's say there was a battle, they would put on the flag of either that side, either it's an allied nation or that nation, and then they would sack that ship and then leave. The idea basically is you make them think their own guys or another group did it. That way they won't go after you, especially if it's, say, you're an English pirate attaching an English vessel, but you want to make it look like a Frenchman did it. So you might have everyone speak French temporarily because a number of people did speak French. So it would add a certain amount of, credibility. And that was part of what we call the theater part of an operation, making people think it's part of it. A fictional version of a false flag would include the Romulans and the Dominion War. You see in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and I'm about to go nerd on you guys, the Federation and the Klingons were trying to get the Romulans in the war. Cisco creates some fake data to try to convince Roman senator. He realizes it's bullshit.
It's a fake.
And begins to leave. But unbeknownst to Cisco, Garrick, his local tailor, who actually is a Cardassian who used to be part of their intelligence, blows up the senator's shuttle, who has the evidence, thereby making it look like he had uncovered something and the Dominion had sought to kill him. Even though this had happened, this was in order to get the Romulans sided with the Federation and the Klingons so they could wipe out this, at least protect themselves from the Dominion. Now that you understand that, we're going to move on to the next type of thing, and that is the internal false flag. And this one, ladies and gentlemen, is the mainstay of conspiracy theorists when it comes to false flag. You see, an internal false flag is the idea of a self-inflicted wound. It's the best analogy. The idea being a group or member of a group, within the group, attacks itself and frames another group, whether they be internal or external, to the attack. So, whether it be, someone in the group and say it's your fault, or someone else says they did it. Now, in this case, the goals are pretty interesting. They're always trying to go. This is always, these turn to fall. There's always a foreign, domestic reason. So it's either a foreign policy, domestic, and a common thing is to discredit or silence your opponents. Now, in this history, the more famous one was famous two. Are the Reichstag fire in Germany and the Gulf of Tonkin incident in the 1960s. You see, back in the 1930s, the Nazis were trying to rise in power, but they had a chief rival the communists, and they're still fighting today. Anyway, so Hitler basically burned down the German legislative building known as the Reichstag. And what he did is he basically made it look like a bunch of communists had engineered the thing as to sow distrust among the German peoples of communists. And go, hey, look, these guys helped get rid of the commies. Let's trust them. And therefore allowing him to rise up the power of not only of the Nazi Party, but Hitler himself, to the point he became Chancellor, then declared himself the Fuhrer. Now, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, we're going to cover real quickly. That was when the U.S. had a ship sunk by its own planes, and then claimed that it was destroyed by two North Vietnamese ships. Yes, they did that. This was to justify America's entering the Vietnam War when France got tired of it. And if you want a fictional example, as I gave with externals, an internal one that everyone will know of, and that actually was pointed out by the man himself, Alex Jones, was the whole plot of the prequels, or at least Attack of the Clones. You see, Palpatine attacked Amidala at the beginning of episode 2, hoping that she would die and he could use her. Someone killed her. So sad. She was from my home world. Let's go destroy the Separatists. Well, it didn't happen. But then again, because it failed, they attacked you. So he used it as a justification to declare war. Eventually, he used it as a justification to declare war on the the Confederacy of Planets, who basically were also run by him. It got really complicated. I mean, Clone Wars gives me headaches for that, but the goal was for Palpatine was to bring the galaxy under his control, and raise his own political capital. And then he was blaming it on the Separatists. And then when people found out what he was doing, he used it as a justification that Jedi need to be wiped out. But mainly that was like an altering of the facts. That's not really a false flag. He just changed the details. Now, this type of, thing is a very common theory among conspiracy theorists. The false flag theory. This can be demonstrated in such things as the claims that 9/11 was an inside job, and that the Vegas shooting and Sandy Hook were all perpetrated by actors. Yes, you heard me right. They claim that Sandy Hook and Las Vegas were actors. The thing is, I never could figure out how they did. I think of Vegas. I mean, I'll probably show you some clips of what people claim. But suffice to say that they claim that 9/11, for instance, was either, the trade centers were either brought down by controlled explosions, or the government hired the terrorists and basically were like, "Oh, look, they attacked." Much the ways you might hire in a medieval time, a king might hire mercenaries who speak, I don't know, let's say this is the English and they have land holdings in France. We're being attacked by French. Let's fight the French. Although, to be fair, back then you didn't really need much to justify a war. In this case, they claim it's a justification for the invasion of Afghanistan and later Iraq. Although Iraq's invasion was likely due to shoddy intelligence and George W. Bush going,
I will finish what you started.
Now, why would people want to believe any of these false flag operations? I mean, come on, I mean, but think about it. A lot of these people are in a world where things don't quite make sense, and that's much easier to blame the government than to realize that things are wrong. In many cases, a lot of these people either don't trust the government in general, that these things, or they just don't want to believe the government's that incompetent. I mean, I gotta give them credit that these guys really think the government works a lot better than it actually does. But I've worked with the government, and government is very incompetent, whether it be local or federal. So, now this theory, at least the false flag, is actually commonly related to things like the New World Order theories. The idea that, there's some sort of cabal planning everything. I mean, everything from, the Illuminati to the patriarchy. People claim are responsible for these false flags. Again, it's not always a nation. It can be a group of people trying to orchestrate stuff. In this case, many people believe these false flags are used to justify, creating a new world order, a unified government. Although I don't get why anybody would worry about having a unified government. All I know is it'd be pretty incompetent, even more incompetent than our current government systems. So that is kind of why people believe in false flags, why they even think they exist, is, at least for internal ones, they're like, things are wrong, bad, it can't be someone else. Now I'll say one last note before I leave about false flag, and that is what they can do to people, the idea of it. Now, this theory drives people to look to believe things. The events, for instance, Sandy Hook was believed to be a false flag by some, and it was perpetuated by Alex Jones. Although he may have not said it directly, he very heavily implied it. And this is where the false flag can be worse than other theories. Is that, especially if you have things like quote-unquote crisis actors, you have victims. Theorists will go and attack them. See, unlike, something where it's like, oh, the government was responsible for blah, 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 or whatever. Or, if, aliens, where you really can't find the people. Because attacks, be them terrorists or mass shooting, happen in the public eye. There are people there. And they assume that these people are what they call crisis actors, people pretending to be victims. This can be actually very distressing. There was a story where a man whose kid was shot during Sandy Hook was harassed by false flag conspiracy theorists for Sandy Hook because oh, stop lying, your kid's fine, or you don't even have a kid, kind of thing. And this really drove distress. And in fact, it's part of the reason why Alex Jones, he's one, they claim, as a justification why he was unpersoned. Now, of course, I think just because, I think the left's gone too far in that case. But these things can be very damaging. These type of theories can borderline, in fact, even are many times slander and libel, which is why most of this conspiracy type is basically giving the middle finger, say, go home. And so that's kind of the whole overview of false flags. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. And I will see you guys next class.